on The Source.
If they're not doing what you want them to, what they need to be doing as you understand it, then there should be no relationship at all?
No, not saying no relationship at all. That's not what I said. I think y'all go to extremes with stuff, and it's like unfortunate that y'all do that. I think a lot of Democrats do that in conversations.
And Republicans.
Like y'all go to the extreme.
Okay. Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Colby Owens.
Shané Darby.
And welcome to The Source. It is a joy to have both of you here today, and we just have so much we want to catch on or share today. So let's just get started with some of the news that we have. We have been an avid or a critic, shall we say, for really talking about the Wilmington Police Department, of how so many shootings are happening in the city. But for the last week, I want to give a little bit of credit that there are we're getting some arrests being made. I don't know what's going on within the Wilmington Police Department right now, but I do notice that the teenager was identified in the Wilmington shooting, the 16-year-old who shot the 16-year-old on the 300 block of North 9th Street. Anyone knows anything about that?
Yeah, so another 16-year-old has been arrested. He shot a 16-year-old on the East 9th Street, who was later transferred to the hospital in stable condition. And actually, the shooter turned himself in.
Oh, did he?
And then he's being held currently at the Newcastle County Detention Facility on his charges of assault, possession of a firearm while committing a felony, and possession of a firearm by a person prohibited. So he must have had a previous record as well, too.
Yeah, I wonder why he turned himself in. Is they had a warrant out for his arrest or anything?
That I don't know. It hasn't really been put out too much to the public on where they were in their investigation, if they had either truly identified someone yet before he turned himself in.
Okay. And then also there was also an arrest on the shooting, the 22-year-old man in connection with the 11th Street and Wilson Street, who shot a 37-year-old man. Yes.
So again, a 22-year-old man was arrested earlier this week in the 9th and Pine Street area of the city of Wilmington. He's currently being held with charges of assault and being held on a $142,000 bail. The shooting, the 37-year-old that took place on September 1st, that individual on 11th and Wilson Street, that individual did survive and is in stable condition currently.
When normally you all are in the city council handling the police department, is there a special committee for the police department?
Well, they fall under public safety. So the public safety meeting is on, we just had one this past Monday. So that would be the second Monday of the month. Okay. We have our public safety meeting at 5 p.m. You can join virtually or in person. And honestly, these conversations aren't held. They just keep it legislation based. Oh, really? So it really hasn't been committee meetings have not been really a place to have real discussion about the police department, about them solving crimes or them needing reform. Like those conversations really don't happen at committee meetings or even council meetings or period, right? Those conversations aren't happening on city council.
And that's why the reason why I asked that question was, what are they saying? What is the community saying at the meetings? And you do go to those meetings?
The public safety meetings? Yes. I'm actually on the committee, yes. Okay. Yeah, so no, the community, we don't get a lot of participation in our committee meetings. So
do you think that's healthy though? Not to be able to discuss some of the concerns, the trends, the things that are happening in the city as it relates to whatever committee it is, whether it be the public safety committee, whether it be
it's been one of my complaints since I've been on there, or city council. So it's just the culture. A lot of things, they just, if it's the way it's been, they just go with it. And when you're outnumbered, there's nothing I can really do when I'm outnumbered.
it's the election season coming. It's now fall, so it won't be long before we're in a real strong election season. I do think we need to make sure that we're paying attention to people not being heard. I mean, I agree with, and I'm grateful that we have some arrests. I didn't dive in it deep enough to know that the first person turned themselves in, and and we're grateful for that as well. Mm-hmm. But then also the person, they did make an arrest, and we've been asking, what are we doing with all these shootings, and we're not hearing of anyone getting arrested. So to have someone arrested, I want to make sure that we are reporting fairly. We just, I don't want to say hats off, but we're grateful that there was 2 arrests this last week over 2 shootings that happened in our city. I want to turn our attention just for a second to another area of the city that was really shocking, and that is dealing with the proposed $15 parking tickets. According to one source, it's been axed. You're the city council person. What did you do wrong there?
Right. So politics is a team sport. All right. So I didn't do anything. But they are not going to go with their original plan of $25, as they announced several times to the public. And we have a list here of how many times the mayor, Przicki, announced reforms to city parking, permanent ticketing, and towing, where he has announced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times to the public that the tickets will be reduced to $25. Mm-hmm. So the argument now is that why the administration is not in support of it now is that they're saying that our budget is okay now, right? But when they do projections 4 or 5 years out, they're saying that there's going to be a negative impact by reducing parking tickets to $25, right? So I think the conversation is it going to be reduced? Yes. Is it going to be $25? If people vote how the mayor wants? No, it will not. But city council has the power to still make it $25. We just need 7 of us to say we want it to still remain $25. I don't think fees and fines should be used as a revenue or should be counted as projected revenue for a city to be able to thrive and stay above the red, right? It should not be counted as such. So I think that the city is going to, if that is true, right, what they're saying in their projections, we have to find other ways to make up for that cost, right? If what they're saying is true, because they could say anything, right? They could say anything, make up anything. Like the mayor administration believes that, so that's what they're thinking, that they're not reducing it, and this is going to save the city, right?
Yeah, but I don't see how that can even save the city, given that even the water, I mean, they went up on that several times, and we went from a quarterly to a monthly, and when you add those 3 months up, it is almost doubled. Not
only that, right? It's also the processing fee, which is what really gets under my skin. So now you get an additional $8 processing fee every month, which creates another $96 that you're putting out per year in just water billing fees, period, just to pay that bill. I think another thing that is a huge issue is you have this surplus, right? You keep saying that, we're running a tight budget, but yet you keep building a bigger and bigger surplus, right? There is no need, and you've already allocated. If you were to change the fees, right, in the budget that passed, they made up the differences so that it would be fine, but yet still now they're going back on their word. It's because they're trying to create a revenue stream based off penalizing the citizens that live here instead of actually doing their job and bringing actual businesses here that will create that new revenue stream, finding new ways for the city to bring in money. They're just using us to do that.
Who was the city council person that was, because to my understanding, since it was not it was just a proposed statement, wasn't there a city council person who were to bring the legislation? Yeah,
council member Maria Cabrera has been the lead on the $25 ticket. So there was several times with it being put on the agenda and then taken off the agenda. And as a council person, you can make that decision. If your legislation stays on, doesn't, and then you can make edits to it behind the scenes with the attorney, with the law department. So that is a decision that she has made to go back and forth, have meetings with the administration, and I guess to find a compromise. So I guess based on conversations I had, it will not be 25. It will be somewhere in between the $25, $40 mark, somewhere in there, but we're not going to 25. And my problem is that y'all announced it to the public several times.
Yeah, a promise made should be a promise kept.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really sitting here thinking. Like, if you made a promise that we're going to deal with these fines and fees, and one of them was this parking, and then we have, Cabrera, who represents the Latino community, who I'm sure get hit with these fines quite often. Why is it? And we're balancing our budget. It was a part of the conversation of the balanced budget.
Yep.
Why is it not done?
So I have an additional question to add to that. One of the justifications for them of increasing the rest of these fees throughout the city, the $1 ticket tax, the 3% increase, or the 3% hotel tax. They put out a huge list of they're increasing all these fees, some of them by 70%, some of them by 150%, wow. Right? Licensing fees and all this other stuff was to make up the difference for reducing the parking tickets. So are they going to now go back and change those fees that they raised back to their normal setting, since now they're not going to be changing?
We know that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
That's not happening. It's not.
What about all those free passes that they give out-of-state people who are here building things in the city? They get all this free parking. How about we charge them for their parking? Would that help us with the residents who live here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely something we could look at. And also, what I discovered over the budget hearing, too, is that through Newcastle County, businesses can go and apply for a tax assessment, which will then give them a break on their taxes. So it's a decision that Newcastle County makes. So I think there also needs to be a conversation between the city of Wilmington and Newcastle County on why we are allowing that to happen with that tax break, a tax assessment that they're doing. And a lot of businesses know if they go through Newcastle County, do the application, whatever it is, go through the process, that they'll get a break. So I know specifically what you're going to hear from the administration is they're going to blame it on that because it's with a totally different government. So then, we don't have any responsibility to that. That's the Newcastle County. They're allowing businesses to come here and get large tax braces where we're missing out on $500,000, I think what John Rago said. And then you could also blame it on, we have a 4 or 5 year projection. And based on their interpretation, we're going to be in the red if we allow this to happen, and the negative impact of that in 4 or 5 years.
I just have a problem with whenever it comes down to the little people, we can easily renege on our promises. But when it comes down to the big business, and that's why I say sometimes we have Democrats making Republican policies, because this is truly appears to be a strong Republican policy. Take care of the top and crush the bottom. And that's a problem for me.
Well, we know Mayor Mike Pazicki is not a Democrat.
Well, he is a Democrat. He's the Democratic mayor for the city of Wilmington.
No, he switched to become a Democrat and ran for office and then had parties with his Republican friends that switched them over to be Democrats. Like, what do you mean? Like, we know this isn't true. He is a Republican. He is a developer. He is not thinking of equity. He is not thinking of the people who've been here for however long. He is trying to drive revenue. They're trying to get more people to come in downtown and the riverfront. And actually, that hasn't really been a success based on the number of people who they were projecting on the growth to happen down there. They have not even hit their metrics. There's a lot of vacancies downtown and at the riverfront, but that's a whole nother conversation. So they'll act like that's a whole success, but it hasn't been. And then they got money to do Riverfront 2.0. How you didn't do good well in Riverfront 1.0, and now you're trying to do a 2.0, as I call it, right? So those conversations are just need to be had, and I think really, truly, community needs to come out. So, for instance, I could put up a $25 ticket, parking ticket legislation, but then you have these people who will ask you to do it, and then only the same 2-3 people come out to the community meeting. I think that it's important too that people stop asking, especially people like me, to be put out there, but there's no community support. So that's a whole nother conversation to have, because it's always the same 2-3 people at the meeting. if I were to go ahead and make a move like that,
Well,
I wouldn't have the community behind me.
And I do notice that that's the way it is, especially here in Delaware and Wilmington, where you people will push you to do things and then they'll stand behind and they won't come out. And
like
I think that is a
cowards.
problem. And for those of you who are watching us today, I really think that we need to get that right, because most of the powers to be in the city realize that after a week you all forget about it and it's all over. But the more we begin to bind together and stick together, I think, and come out to meetings and make sure that we show ourselves, I think that will then change the trajectory. As a matter of fact, if enough people went to Cabrera and said to her, your election depends on your promises, because honestly, all of our reputations is based on how we deliver our promises. And for it to have been promised that we were going to have a $15 reduction in the parking, it should have been handled. Well, you can say, well, this may not be that big. It is big. Everything is big when you make a promise. And I think that's going to be very much important. So we're going to try to switch over just a little bit and run over to something that happened with the former Wilmington police officer. She filed a discrimination charge, and the federal judge, he kind of dismissed it. And I don't know a lot about it, but you know anything about that?
Yeah, so you had someone who was working in the police department who got involved with another officer. They were married. There was a dispute, and charges were filed against each other. During that time, they used justification to go through personal records, so her phone and some other things, her computer and stuff like that, and found some intimate stuff there, and then shared it with other members of the police department, which led to her wanting to leave the Wilmington Police Department. And they used some of the stuff that they filed to make fun of her, and to kind of disregard her position in the police department. This led to the lawsuit. Again, it's unfortunately, it's not shocking that this was dismissed, but it has opened the door for her to pursue other avenues of a lawsuit against other entities.
Yeah, I know earlier you were talking about you feel that the Wilmington Police Department needs a total reform.
Inside and out.
Inside, and well, I don't know how can you do one out, but I hear you. Now, even with this situation, that was really two police officers having a personal problem, but then they moved it into the department, and then through the department, I guess that's a sign of lack of professionalism. And then the department, then I guess, did anybody use any of these photos or things that anybody know of?
Other people who were named in this lawsuit was the former, I forget her position, but Ash, who's now the police chief down in, I believe, Milford or Milton, one of those. I believe it's Milford, though, as well as Chief Tracy, right? And saying that they allowed for this culture of discrimination and abuse to happen under their watch, right? So Ash was the inspector in charge of operations. And then Chief Tracy was, again, the chief of the department overall.
How do we get reform?
I think that it's important that we have someone come out from the outside who's not connected to the city of Wilmington to really look at the police department. The city council actually came together about a year ago, a little bit over a year now, to say that that's what we wanted, and for them to look at the culture within, because it's a very toxic work environment for a lot of people, like Black, Hispanic, woman groups who are in the police department, to talk about how do you improve that within, and then also how do you improve the police interaction with the community. What does that mean? There are people who are willing to come in, but the administration, the police chiefs are not open to it, and city council is not willing as a group to put pressure on the administration to do it.
So even with what you're sharing, you said at one point the city council had they came together. And what was that for?
So at the time, I guess a lot of council people, this is when there was police Tracy, chief of police Tracy was there. A lot of people were upset with a lot of things that he was doing. So like one council person wanted him to be a little bit more vocal about shootings that were happening and communicating it better. Others were saying for years they've been trying to do this type of reform in the police department. So we were able to get on a piece of resolution, 7 people, to say that we want the chief of police to do an assessment on the police department, right? So we were able to do that about a year ago. So we were able to come together on that. But since then, there's been no pressure put on them to do it. The administration said that they would, and they would put it in the budget. They lied about that.
I heard you say about the budget. Well, how do you put pressure on the police department that is not reporting to the city council to get better?
Right. So the city council, we vote on legislation. So the police department has to come to us for a lot of different like grants that they want to apply for. And if they want to receive the money, it has to go through city council. And the grants could be from, they need uniforms to drones and special equipment, right? So a lot of those go through us. City council has the power as a group to say, we're not going to vote to any of this right now until you do this, right? Because I'm not even stating that I don't think the police deserve some of that grant money. Like, do I think they should have nice and new uniforms? Yeah, I think they should, right? But I'm going to vote no to it because I don't think we should award a group of people or the leadership there to continue with the practices they have without holding them accountable. So the best way to hold someone accountable is say, I'm not going to give you the rest of this money until you do what you need to do. And then after that, I'll look at these and see.
I think that's very sensible. And I think that's because that's what's happening with the auto unions.
But we don't have enough city council people to do it. So most of the time, it's only me and council president Trippy Congo who will vote no to it. And then now that we got a chief of police that is Hispanic, the first Hispanic representation is great. However, representation does not equal that it's going to be beneficial to the community that person looks like or similar to, which is the Black community, right? So now that we have a chief of police who's Hispanic, we think we made it. Oh, with diversity, we got a new person in there. He'll look at it different. No, he's blue. He bleeds blue too. Right? And for me, it's not about the person, it's about the system. So the system pumps these individuals into a police department who has this certain ideology of what it means to be a police. I am in the military. I know they pump certain things into my head about what it means to be a military person, right? And sometimes I got to catch myself in certain things or certain words I may say and be like, okay, they're indoctrinating you, Shané, now, like, get it together, right? So those things happen in groups like that. Right.
All right, I got you. Well, I like the fact that you're saying we need more people who can hold them accountable through budget, which means you need city council members who will vote to, and because I don't really know the process, but I think that makes sense to me. If we really want to hold people accountable, we have to talk to our elected officials and say, listen, we can't just continue to sit back idle. We have to vote and say, no, we're not going to give you one extra thing until you deliver on some of the promises, just like a parking ticket. You can't just go and say things and think that we're supposed to accept it. I think that's one of the problems that I have too. The apathy. They say they're going to give us a better parking. So we vote for them and then they get elected and we don't get it. When will we hold people accountable? But all this stuff is going to come back, because what we're going to do is we're going to go back to those report cards and we're going to say why we're giving people the grades we're giving them. Because if they promise to do certain things and they don't do it, we need to let the public know. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we're going to come right back. We'll be right back.
Tune in at 8 a.m. every Sunday for our worship services. Join us at 9 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live by typing Zion Fair Baptist Church. We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
And we're back. Well, what's going on with the Shané Scope this week?
Yeah, so I wanted to really talk about the Landlord Town Hall Part 2 that we had. It was sometime last week. It was actually a follow-up from Landlord Town Hall 1 that we had in the beginning of the summer to really engage landlords to ask them, what do you want? How can we improve? How can the city improve our relationship with landlords? The city, a group of us, community members and myself got together to apply for the city of Wilmington to be a part of a National League of Cities program called the Landlord Engagement Lab. So the city was selected to be a part of that program. So a group of us met with the program every month to hear about what other cities and states are doing to positively engage landlords, right? And especially small landlords is what we're talking about. In regards to providing them with incentives, support, because we know that if landlords are supported, especially the small ones, then there's better housing. Right? They're following rules. They're doing what they have to do to be the business owners that they are, right? So we, after speaking to the landlords in Landlord Town Hall 1, there was also a grant that they could apply for through Energize Delaware. So a lot of them got an opportunity to apply to the grant, get connected to resources. There's like a landlord association group. A lot of them was able to get connected to with Jeff Sheraton. So the Landlord Town Hall 2 was just a follow-up from that, and to talk about some specific legislation that may be introduced. So one of them is creating an online rental registry. So what would that, it would allow landlords to have to go online to a portal to register their properties. Currently now they have to come into the city building, and that is like a headache for a lot of people. So just creating an online registry for them to want to keep track of all the units that are registered. We are also interested in some GIS mapping. So some other cities, they map out all of the rental units. It's like a map. You can go on there as a citizen, click on a house. If it's on there, you'll see if it's been registered, if it has been inspected. So it's like a very informal, they do it right down in Newark, like right down the street, right? In our own state, people are using systems to make it easier to see what landlords are doing the right thing, right? And then they have processes too to identify landlords who are not following processes, and to identify landlords who are just not providing the affordable housing that they need, and livable housing for people in the city of Wilmington. So we can do the same thing here, and the online registry hits on that. We're also interested in creating incentives for landlords to register their properties with the city. So in Newark, if you register on time, you pass your inspection, they'll give you a parking pass as a landlord, so that if you need to come visit your unit, you need to do some work or fix it up. This is in Newark. In Newark, right? So a lot of times in the city, there's like 2-hour parking. There's those things that are that require landlords to come into the city to their property. A lot of them complain about getting tickets, parking tickets, and things like that, $40 tickets. So we talked about some different ideas that landlords would want to be registered, right? Because some of them are not registering, and by law they have to, but there's really no accountability system from the city to make sure that happens. Right? That could be why we have so many slumlords. Right, yep. And another thing is creating landlord education material. So like creating at least like a web page on the city council website where it talks about, what are you supposed to do as a landlord? Events, trainings, tell landlords about available programs and resources. So a page for landlords to go to get the information that they need. I also talked about creating a loan grant program for landlords to address code violations. So that legislation has been drafted. So that's for small landlords. You have to have under 5 properties. You have to have be charging a certain amount of rent. We follow some guidelines. So it's on more for low income. For low income landlords, pretty much. So that if they have code violations, they have access to funds to be able to fix up the property and address those code violations. And then we're also going to give them a 6-month amnesty period for unlicensed landlord to get rental license for their properties. So if we get the online registry, we could say, hey, everyone has 6 months to get on here. After that, then the law already has a fee that you get, or a fine per se, that you get for not registering your property. We have a system currently called Ptolemy that can run reports to find out what properties are being rented out and are not registered.
Really?
Yes. Other Lancaster, PA, or Lancaster, whatever way you say it, they have the same Lancaster. Yeah, they have a program where they run a report every month to see if there's any households who may have someone with a different electric bill than who owns the property, right? So then they go and check. Because there are some circumstances where it might not be a rental unit, but for the most part, they're able to capture that data and then be able to remedy it. Like they do canvases, they walk neighborhoods, and they're a city of similar size. Our poverty rate is a little bit higher. They're a little bit more, they have more Hispanic people there, but pretty much same city, we face some of the same issues. So we have some really cool initiatives that we can do here in the city of Wilmington, but we just have to have an administration that's willing. And I'm also, the last piece of legislation is setting up a task force to really analyze and look at L&I, right? So we have a lot of issues with L&I in regards to them completing inspections, right? And it's always capacity. Why aren't we doing rental inspections on all units, right? They would say we don't have enough inspectors, right?
So if, just to make sure I understand, and those who are listening to you, if I want to rent out my house, I have to go to the city, get licensed to rent.
You have to, by law.
Now, how do they supposed to come out and inspect my property?
Yes.
And then say yes or no?
Correct. There's supposed to be a pre-rental inspection.
That's not happening.
Yeah, some landlords are saying that's not happening. And then the city is saying they don't have the capacity. And that beyond the pre-rental inspection, rental units should be inspected every year, every 2 years, every 3. It should be some type of process, but there's not. There are some units have not been inspected since they've been around, right? And that's why we had issues like on Adams Street, where you had violations on top of violations and no one holding it accountable or doing frequent inspections. And Lancaster, they have a great program too, where if someone is dinged with a code violation, like those properties, they get on a yearly inspection list. If you pass, you get on a 2-3 year one, right? They're even doing something with Airbnbs, right? A whole nother market that we haven't even tapped into yet here in the city of Wilmington in regards to how we're going to deal with Airbnbs. So the landlord town hall, we were able to introduce those pieces of legislations, get some feedback and suggestions from landlords, because I really want to be able to engage landlords and have them come out and support the legislation, because this is beneficial to them, beneficial to renters. And that's really my end goal, is how do I keep renters in their home? And if I got to work with landlords to do that and figure out how to develop that relationship, that's what I'm willing to do.
And that's really what a public servant does, and that is that person go out and figure out how do we bring the community together as opposed to separating them. And we hear about the big deficit that we have in the state of Delaware for affordable housing. And I think this is one of the ways we can make sure that not only is the housing affordable, but it's livable. Because all too often you can get into a place where they got bed bugs, they got all kind of issues. And that's why last week when you talked about them coming in with the lead paint and they were able to fix some other things, I was glad to hear that the landlord, even if a person don't live in a place, could try to get that stuff, those type of benefits too, because we really need to find a way to support landowners as well as those who are living in the resident, so that we will have quality housing. Yeah. Well, we will get better. Jesse Jackson said, "Keep hope alive." In 1988. We'll be right back.
Join us at 9 a.m. on Facebook Live every Sunday by typing eZion Fair Baptist Church.
Jesus felt what you're feeling, but he did not sin. Am I in the word? Have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin.
We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
New guests, new conversations, new stories every Sunday at 11 a.m. Grab your cup of coffee and tune in with Dr. Curry for our weekly episodes of Coffee with Curry.
And we're back. Well, Colby, what's going on with the Colby Corner this week?
Yeah, so first I want to talk about something fun and historic. DSU, Delaware State University, their archives department and their gallery department, art department, is doing an expedition, a collection expedition on the late Senator Herman Holloway. He was the first African-American senator here in the state of Delaware, who laid the groundwork for a lot of civil rights-based legislation, especially probably his biggest piece, which was the Public Accommodations Act here in Delaware. I believe that was in 19.
Oh, geez.
1981.
Right.
But it's going to be on display until September 22nd. So if you have an opportunity to go head down and visit it, it's at the Art Center, the gallery, in the Jason Library, the William C. Jason Library, down in Dover. So it's an opportunity. They have pictures up of him, articles, some of his legislation, and also some of his journals as well too, his writings during his time in the Senate, but then also just talking about his life as well too. It kicked off earlier this week on Wednesday at the library. So it was a nice reception to honor someone who did so much for the state and laid the groundwork for so many others here in Delaware. Next, I want to talk about what I think is a first step in a long investigation that's going to be going on. The EPA announced that they are accepting the complaint filed by the Socially Responsible Agriculture Program or Project, Sussex Health and Environmental Network, ACLU of Delaware, Delaware Poor People's Campaign, and the Delaware NAACP that calls for them to investigate DEMRAC here in Delaware based on allegations of civil rights violations by them failing to provide adequate public participation opportunities for residents in Seaford when it came to the permitting process for the new bioenergy, the DevCo's Bioenergy Innovative Center, which is an anaerobic digester, right? And a methane gas producer and a gas refinery project that they're looking to expand, again, down in Sussex. Now, originally in the letter that was sent, the complaint that was filed, we also called for Sussex County to be investigated for their portion of this. EPA did come back and say that they're not going to investigate the county portion of it because it's the permit is originating with DENRAC. So that's who they're going to be investigating. This was kind of spearheaded by a activist, a huge environmental activist, especially in the Sussex area, Marie Payan, who has been pulling together coalition members over the last few years, especially when they first found out about this potential project. I believe it was back in April 2021, and the complaint actually didn't get filed until December of last year. So it took us some time to get that complaint in, but I'm glad we were able to move forward with it as we continue to fight back against this. And again, this isn't the first time that this has happened down there. DEMRAC has a long history of doing things like this and then say, oh no, we swear we didn't do it on purpose.
How many times do you do something before you...
Right. Same thing happens with, it's a language barrier as well too. One of the things that Sussex has a huge population of Haitians. So a lot of people call for information to be disseminated in Haitian Creole, right, in native tongue. Also, of course, Spanish, English. There's a list of about 20 different languages that should be, information should be disseminated in whenever they're doing this permitting process that's going to create more pollution into our air, right? And also potentially pollution into our water as well, too, the wastewater down there as well. We've seen this with Purdue Farms as well, too. You know, everyone's favorite chicken. Some people may be Team Tyson. But but Purdue has one of the largest producing areas here in the state of Delaware, along with Mondaire as well too. So between those two, Sussex County is the largest producing poultry county in the world. We beat out every county in Georgia, which is the largest state in the nation for poultry production. Next, I want to talk about an upcoming strike. It seems as though there has been multiple strikes going on, labor strikes throughout the United States right now. The writers are still on strike in Hollywood and throughout America. But another one, the UAW, if a deal is not made within a few hours of the filming of this show, production at three major companies will come to a halt when workers call out and go on strike. That's at GM, General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, which is the parent company to the companies that build Jeep, that build Ram, that build Dodge, that
like Chrysler.
Chrysler as well too. They purchased all those up and under one large umbrella now. I believe that it probably will go on strike, and it will be a very historic strike for all three of these major automakers to have a strike going on at the same time. But they are fighting for better wages. And again, I believe it's about 145,000 workers willing to go on strike during this.
And I just want to say to those of you who are watching us, please note that for them to go on strike is almost like what happened with COVID. Everything goes into a shutdown, and we already are in a crisis with new vehicles and American-made vehicles, and we push a lot. I heard you say under your breath, but you said it out loud last week. Those of us who have electric cars, you wait to see what the American cars do first before you make a decision. But I am a true believer. I do have an American-made car, and I'm a true believer in it. But what's going to happen is stuff going to start shooting up. The price is going to go up, because once you start shutting down factories, it's going to take a while to pull those things back up. And they're trying to find a way to strategically do it where it's felt by the company, but not felt to the place where it's going to cripple our economy. But I think that when I was a little kid, I used to go on those strikes, but it would be one. It'll be Ford on strike because they don't like the wages, or to be General Motors. But now you're talking about the three majors, all of them going on. That's going to be.
And these are going to be targeted strikes to at least start off, which means they're only going to do at certain plants first. This is a strategy that both helps the union, but also helps them gain leverage, but also helps them with their strike fund. And what a strike fund is the money that is used for those members who are on strike, so that they can continue to pay their bills, pay for school for their kids, or and get food, groceries, and stuff like that while they are on strike. Now, if all 45,000 members of UAW were to go on strike, it would cost the strike fund about $70 million a week. And the fund currently sits at $825 million. So it is a very important task to make sure that they do this right and strategically, to make sure that they get their message out, build the leverage they need to get these contracts done for their workers. Wow.
I just hope they come to an agreement. I am pro union. I also know that with everything, there are issues. Sometimes people get a little too greedy, but by the same token, if the CEO can make $300,000 who just pushing a piece of paper, then I certainly believe those who are down in sweat, with their sweat, blood, and tears, can make that as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm very much there.
And my last point today, I wanted to talk about DACA, right? Okay. DACA has been a program that was created under the Obama administration in 2012. It has been on a chopping block multiple times under the Trump administration. Biden has come out and said that he wants to preserve it and expand it. And now a federal judge has now ruled yet again that Obama overstepped his powers as president through the executive order creating DACA. You may ask, what is DACA? So DACA is the Deferred Action for individuals who are undocumented here in America, right? So some of the qualifications, deferred actions for childhood arrival. Sorry, that's the full title. But the requirements for it is you had to be 31 or younger as of June 15th, 2012. You came to the United States before your 16th birthday. You lived continuously in the United States from 2015 or June 15, 2007 until present. Right. You were physically present in the U.S. on June 15th, 2012 at the time that you could start applying for this. You came with your parents, right? So your parents came illegally, but you as a child, you have no say in that, right? This also, what it does, it defers deportation. And it also guarantees you a work permit so that you can work and be an active member of society here. And it's a renewal process every 2 years. The fees have gone up as they try to make this process harder for individuals, but there are funds out there that help individuals. This process, you may hear some people refer to the kids, the kids who are DACA recipients as dreamers, right? Because they have a dream to succeed here in America. Del State actually has one of the largest dreamer programs in the nation, which every year they accept dreamers into DSU to further their education as well too. So again, as a federal judge, they have the power, and this happened in a district court down in Houston. I believe his name is Hansen, something like that.
You mean Henson?
Henson, yes. Yeah. Again, his view of it is that President Obama exceeded his authority when he created the Deferred Action Childhood Arrival Program, or DACA for short, as of executive order in 2012. This has been I think it was 5 years ago now at this point, 2018, is when the first ruling came down. So it's been a long 5-year court battle going back and forth. So again, it's not done just yet. Again, it's going to go further. The Biden administration has already made different rulings as early as 2021 when they were first sworn in to bolster the legal standing of DACA.
Wow.
So that's all I have for today. Again, it's, a lot's going on the national level that could have impact here in Delaware.
Yeah, and I think we do need to pay close attention, especially to the strike. But to the DACA piece, we have a lot of undocumented immigrants here.
Yes.
But I think sometimes because of how we're handling, whether it be DACA or other immigration issues, is why we're having such a shortage in the workforce. I mean, there's jobs, but there's not people to fill them. And right now, Delaware got some very strong deficiencies. Now, it could be because of the lack of pay rates and things of that nature, but we just better pay. We need to be paying attention. We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we just want to spend a couple minutes talking about the two parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and the benefits and some of the problems. I had a very good time at the first state Democratic dinner, and I learned some things because I don't really go out too often, but I learned some things and I want to talk about it. We'll be right back.
Join us at 9 a.m. on YouTube every Sunday by typing Zion Fair Baptist Church.
Oh my God, help me today. Which means every storm is a school. Every trial is a teacher. Every experience is an education. And every difficulty is development.
We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
And we're back. One of the things I wanted to do today is I wanted to just talk about the Democratic and Republican Party. My daughter said something to me this week, and I had a very good conversation with her, giving her an opportunity to really voice her own opinion and share. She's only 12 years old, but she's pretty smart. And I I had an opportunity to go to Democratic first state dinner. I enjoyed it because I was able to see the dots and see how things are connected. But I often hear people, such as myself and others, who will say, I don't want to identify with the Democrats. I don't want to identify with the Republicans. But in America, there's a two-party system. You have said many times that's unfortunate. But even it being unfortunate, how do you get things done for your constituents if there is an anti-movement against the organizations? Anybody can help me, because that's what I'm trying to figure out. As we are moving towards the Republicans who are about to explode, who would replace them? And and Donald Trump is very clear. He knows that if the Republican Party is not going to be exploded, because they just won't win. They won't get certain areas. There's certain departments, certain areas like Delaware. Delaware is a Democratic state, okay, and it's blue. It's blue. Everybody in Delaware doesn't like Biden. Everybody in the Democratic Party doesn't like Biden. But the reality of it is, in order to get some things done, it's not about their endorsement. It's about just the vehicle. You said that the mayor of the city of Wilmington, he ran as a Democrat. I didn't know he was a Republican. So if he ran as a Democrat, he won. He was able to get in, and whoever he needed to support, he got in, and he's supporting them. So I don't know why, what's going on with y'all generation, because y'all the same generation, right?
Yeah.
We would be, but I think we're very different in ideology.
What do you mean?
So I don't want to put us in the same ideology boat at all.
Well, I don't know if I was saying ideology, but okay.
Like, so, I would not be all into the Democratic Party. Like, I haven't been. When I ran for office, I never been. I am not a oh my gosh, Democrat running around. Like, that's not my thing, right?
So what do you say when he criticized people like, I don't like saying names too much because I get in trouble, but when he criticized a fellow Democrat for not doing what he's supposed to do you say all in? Because all in, when you said that, it made me think like they can do no wrong. My problem is, and then y'all beat up on me today, my problem is your generation have no patience. It's like go in, steamroll over everything, and we're going to do it our way. And I think it's hurting a lot of the people who count on you all to get them results. You cannot get results if no one will open the door for you, or at least let you in. Because when you said, like, now I see what you mean when you said don't put y'all in the same bracket. Because if he wants to be diplomatic and say, okay, you know what, let me work with this group so that I can get this for my people, you're saying no. If they're not doing what you want them to, what they need to be doing as you understand it, then there should be no relationship at all?
No, not saying no relationship at all. That's not what I said. I think y'all go to extremes with stuff. And it's like unfortunate that y'all do that. I think a lot of Democrats do that in conversations.
And Republicans.
Like y'all go to the extreme.
Okay.
I will not identify myself with a party and be all in the way certain people are. It's just something I just would never do, right? Do some of my ideals match with Democratic Party? Yes, but it doesn't match with them because I'm a Democrat. It matches with them because that's just who I am as a person, right? I am not set to a party and never been. My ideology just comes from life experiences, from different people who have taught me things that formally and informally on how I stand and be. I am not the way I am because of a party. Right. And I don't have to identify with one.
And I'm not the way I am because of a party either.
Okay.
Yes, I am a Democrat, but I stand on my own 2 feet.
Right. I'm just saying we're not the same. That's all I say.
Right, but it does appear that like none of us agree with all. Right now, there are members of Zion Fair Baptist Church who don't agree with all that we do. They don't agree with everything, but they and they're not a member because they are Zion Fair, because of Zion Fair's values. They are a member because they align themselves with, they agree with the majority of what we do. And I think what happens, I think, with politics is that while I am a Democrat, one of the issues I have with the Democrat is there are some things that are very liberal. I'm careful what I say because I want to make sure that they're too liberal. I think that some of this free money that Biden gave out caused some of the problems we have in the city of Wilmington now. I think that he has really, it has become so, people learn how to deal with the system. I heard you talk about quite often about, they need to pay more, they need to pay more. But we also need to get some more quality work people in here too. And nobody talks about the quality, just talk about the finance part of it. And the same with Republicans. They talk about no abortions, but they don't give us any health care. So I don't align myself with the Democrats because I'm a Democratic bleeding person, or a Republican bleeding person, but I align myself with the values because of the values I bring to the table. I think this group can help me help my people. That's why I stand as a Democrat.
Maybe you can. I just know that most people, and I talk to my age group and my circle, do not want to identify as a Democrat, but we're forced to. People do not want to be subjected to choosing between two parties. They just don't want it. So I hope that in the next decade or in the next future, somehow with these next young generation, because they on fire, and I'm glad your 12-year-old said that, because we got to give them room to think and stop putting them in boxes and say you only have two options. No, if a group of them get into power, they can change that. There's alternatives to two-party systems. There's different things people have proposed. There's things in between that makes a system more fair and for everybody. It's not fair that if I don't identify as a Democrat, right, and beforehand I was an independent, I could not vote in the primary. That doesn't
That's
make
only
any...
in the state of Delaware.
Now, I'm just talking about Delaware, where I am, my experiences, right? I cannot vote. That's not fair. That is not fair. Like things like that is not fair.
So you
because
get in
they're locked
and you change
into a two-party system.
But you get in and then you change it. Now you are in the Democratic Party. Then if it's not fair, why can't you align yourself with people who have the same ideology you have? Get in the position to be able to change it.
There's not a lot of workers. I'm telling you.
So what do? We stand on the back line and just say that we're not for it. And that's where I think, because when you just said you're not all in like him, I don't know what he does. I know that he gets on some people's nerves, and you do too. And I do too. We all get on people's nerves. But I just want to make sure we understand you cannot want better, but don't learn the system or don't learn the system to be able to change it.
You don't have to be a part of it to learn it. Who said
yes, you
have
do.
to? No,
yes, you do.
Don't.
I
have learned the system.
You are a certified
I have
member.
learned the nonprofit system so well, Black maternal health care, and I will never, ever do certain things to get grants that certain people do. Because I have values about me, right? So there's certain things how I navigate. And when I go into meetings with the people who give me grant money, I am just who I am as a person. And they'll still give me the money because I set the stipulations.
And sometimes they do it because they have to give it to a Black sister.
I set
sometimes
the stipulations from the beginning.
And they'll put up with you because they got to give it to a Black sister or a Black brother or to some nonprofit. But you still got to pay attention to the fact you are a member of Delta Sigma Theta. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi. You can't tell me what's going on in Omega Psi Phi. You're from the outside. So to say Omegas are crazy, they're bad, they're terrible. Well, you're not a Q. So but now that I am, I can say certain things are going wrong, and then I can get in there and I can change it. I can talk about it to the people to say, look, there are other people who got the same ideology that I have. We need to change this. We need to change that. But I cannot, from the outside, for all those persons who say, I don't want to identify, you're going to always be on the outside. You can't change the culture.
I'm not on the outside.
I'm
on the inside.
But you said many of your people are on the outside who don't even identify.
And I don't need the Democratic Party to run for office. No, I don't.
Why did you run?
I ran because of my own values
and beliefs. But you ran under the Democratic Party.
Did not support me.
They did because they let you go on their ballot.
They can't stop me.
Okay, but you're not listening to yourself.
They cannot stop me.
No, you are a Democrat. You should have ran as a Republican or independent.
No.
Why did you run as independent?
I did not run as an independent because there's only certain roles that you can take when you're independent.
So you're using the Democratic Party, huh?
Yes, I will use them for everything they have. Yes, I will.
That's that generation.
I will use them for everything they got.
And I'm not arguing that. And you should be able to use them.
Yes, I will. I will use them and then turn around and tell them I'm not a Democrat and use their name. And I will turn around and use their vote builder system. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Again, and I am not a Democrat.
And then when you get into the city council that you're in now, then the question becomes, how are you helping the people who have voted you in to help them?
Yep, Landlord Engagement Lab, fees and fines, $50,000 grants. I have some legislation.
Fees and fines, we just talking about that earlier today. Now you are doing that. You're putting that stuff up, right?
No, I have a fees and fines task force. So I got the city of Wilmington in a program, on a national program, and they gave us a $50,000 grant, right? There's no other city council person doing that. Right. Name one other city council doing that type work.
But even though you're doing it, and I'm never going to discount what you do because I think you do a very good job. All right, and I want to make sure those of you who are watching us having this live discussion on this issue, I want to make sure you understand, and I've been saying this to some of the younger millennials in this church, that you have to be able to understand the system to change it. You got to be diplomatic. All right, well, that was a nice little conversation, and on this show, I'm a lover of Shané for several reasons, and I'm a lover of Colby for several reasons. But what we're going to always do is open up for us to have a conversation. And when things are on our mind, we want to be able to share it. And even when we disagree, because at the end of the day, we can disagree without being disagreeable. Until the next time we get together, this is Dr. Curry.
This is Colby Owens.
Shané Darby.
See ya.
Take care, y'all.
Talk soon.